Welcome into another edition of the 5 Reasons Podcast. My name is Chris Whittingham, joined as always by Ethan Skolnick. Do subscribe to the program on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, TuneIn, or wherever you get your podcasts, or on Podbean as well. That is our hosting app. Follow the show on Twitter at 5 Reasons Sports. Follow the show on Instagram at 5 Reasons Sports, and that is where you can check us out. But Ethan, we normally do these on a Sunday night. We were otherwise occupied, and so we do this on a Monday morning, our post-Dolphins victory podcast. Now, in recent weeks, these have kind of been pretty sad. Even when the Dolphins win, they unconvincingly beat the Bills, or they unconvincingly beat whichever team they've beaten, or they've lost. But this is a pure jubilation episode from a Dolphins fan point of view after that ridiculous touchdown that only had 3 laterals, which are actually 2 in the end. The ball was only in the hands of 4 different Dolphins, which normally for a last play of the game that goes the length of the field requires more than that. But you have to say the Patriots defended it in a pretty appalling fashion. But this is an epic victory for the Miami Dolphins. You would have to say, I saw Adam Beasley make this argument on Twitter that a lot of Dolphins fans are complaining that maybe they should have won against the Bengals, or maybe they should have won against the Colts. Well, the last 2 weeks that literally come down to the final play, whether it was the Bills dropping the touchdown to Charles Clay, or this play, which is just the ultimate against the odds play, that this season has kind of evened out a little bit, hasn't it?
Well, it's more than evened out, obviously. I mean, again, I'm not going to douse this one, Chris, I promise. But we are talking about a team that's 29th in the league in offense and defense. And so when you're 7-6, okay, you take it. Like, I don't think we I don't, they're minus 51 in point differential. I don't think that we should sort of harp on what happened now in Cincy and Indy as much, because like you said, they got 2, they gave 2, and now they're in reasonable position to make a playoff run if they win out. Obviously, we're going to go through some of the ramifications of the next 3 weeks and what needs to happen and all the rest of that. And as we speak, we're taping this on a Monday morning. Minnesota plays tonight, and that actually may impact their desperation next week against the Dolphins, because they're kind of caught in it a little bit here in the NFC. But I think, look, we have to put this into context. They beat the Patriots. No matter how they did it, that's significant. They've done that here in December. If Tom Brady didn't keep losing to the Dolphins in December, he'd be known as a pretty good quarterback. He loses here even if he plays a near perfect first half. He still loses here, and so crazy things have happened here. And look, there's a parallel because until recently, every time LeBron came down here to Miami, it hasn't seemed to matter what team has been out there, he's lost. And I don't know why that happens, but certain guys, just struggled to win here. And obviously this was not Brady's fault, but strange circumstances have occurred. I do think before we get into sort of what it means for the Dolphins and for the playoff picture, we should just put the play and the event into some context. And so let's break this down from when Marino retired, right? Yep. Because if you look, and we had Mark Clayton on the Fish Tank podcast last week. We've got Mark Duper on the Fish Tank podcast that posts tomorrow. So, there's a lot of memories from those years, okay? I mean, you could go hours with those guys. The 84 season alone, okay, is enough for most franchises. But you haven't had a lot of those since. And so I'm going to break it down from Marino's retirement in 99, 62-7, and then starting in 2000. I've got 5 events, Chris, that I think are significant that have happened. I wish there were more, okay? I wish there were more, all right? But these are the 5 that I came up with. So you tell me how you would rank them. We've got yesterday and beating the Patriots on that wacky play at the end. We've got the Wildcat in New England with Ronnie Brown in 2008. We've got Jay Fiedler crossing the goal line. We talked to him about that on the podcast after 9/11 to beat the Raiders at home. I think that one certainly qualifies. We've got Greg Camarillo, who we've also had on our podcast, preventing the 0-16 season with an overtime win against Baltimore after a ridiculous decision that Brian Billick made. And then we have, and I had 2 others I was choosing between, but I'm going to put aside the win in the Meadowlands against Brett Favre to clinch the division. Great moment. I was there. Great locker room. But I'm going to go with a different one instead, which is the actual playoff victory, which was Lamar Smith in the year 2000, which is the last playoff victory that the Dolphins have had. So how would you rank those 5 moments?
It's a great question. I definitely put Greg Camarillo 1, just because it spared the blushes of this organization so much that they're not the Lions, they're not the Browns that will forever have an 0-16 season link with them. And we're talking about, again, sort of in the moment jubilation. Obviously, the Patriots game in New England with the Wildcat was just sort of like what the hell's going on here? Like, how is it possible that this Dolphins team is out-strategizing the greatest genius in the history of football and are making them look like complete morons? And so I do think as an individual moment, I remember, you know what's funny about that season is that I had season tickets for that season, and that was the one game I didn't go to. So I saw 7 Dolphins losses, and I watched the 8th game at home. But yeah, I would say Greg Camarillo is probably one. I would probably put you mentioned sort of it on the periphery, but that 2008 win in New York, I remember a Ted Ginn punt return. I was like, okay, the Dolphins are going to do this. They're going to win this division. There's probably was there a moment during the playoff season that most recently happened under Adam Gase in 2016?
I don't think so.
Was there one moment? It might have been like stopping the 49ers at the goal line in a home game, but there wasn't really like one iconic moment. They won in New York, I think, that year as well. But again, those are just sort of larger. Maybe Jay Ajayi's one of his 200-yard games, but it's actually kind of incredible when you look at what happens yesterday, that the Dolphins have never had a walk-off touchdown before, which I was shocked by. That was according to Elias Sports, and the Dolphins sent that out as well. And that was also the longest walk-off touchdown in the NFL since the AFL-NFL merger in 1970. So it just sort of describes a unique situation where you're beating this team at home, albeit in front of 50% Patriots fans. So it was actually kind of funny watching the highlight that you don't really hear the roar that you should, and it's because there's actually a lot of people in stunned silence that are within earshot of the touchdown. But yeah, I think the specific way in which yesterday happened, I'd probably put that moment 1 and Greg Camarillo 2.
All right, we got to do this though, because I'm throwing this on Twitter. So what are we calling it, by the way? Because I've seen, first thing, could everybody stop saying that Tom Brady struggles on South Beach? It is not South Beach. It is nowhere. It is nowhere near South Beach.
I saw the NFL Network tweeted out, celebrations on South Beach will be amazing, and then
they don't even know the Dolphins exist.
And then somebody responded, wait, are they celebrating in Miami Gardens or Carroll City?
That's exactly right.
Those are the two localities far closer to the stadium than South Beach.
And maybe Miramar, but that's about it. Okay, yeah. It's not South Beach. All right, so you're putting, because I'm tallying this as we go.
Yeah.
Because the best suggestions I heard was we had a tweet into us, shock at the Rock, which I kind of liked.
Yeah, because it's a lot more better and original than Miami Miracle. I will say though, one candidate to throw into the mix, just because it involves a host in our network, the Dolphins, albeit in a fairly meaningless game in 2005, beat the Buffalo Bills 24-23, and it actually involves another of our favorites. The Dolphins were 21-0 down after the first quarter. They were 23-3 down going into the fourth, and a trio of fourth quarter touchdowns, including one with 6 seconds left to play from Sage Rosenfels to Chris Chambers, allowed the Dolphins to win that game 24-23. So a 20-point fourth quarter comeback kind of has to be incorporated in there as well.
No doubt. And there's another Chambers moment which we've talked about, which is the Thanksgiving game in Dallas. All right, so let's go through. So we got the shock at the Rock first. We've got catch. Maybe we can extend this a little bit further than 5. We got shock at the Rock first. We've got catch Camarillo, our buddy Greg Camarillo prevents 0-16. You're going with what next? Is it the Wildcat game, the Fiedler moment? I
go for Wildcat game next.
Okay, so we're going for the Wildcat game in New England.
Yep.
All right.
And then probably the Fiedler game, and then I'd throw the Dolphins.
Lamar Smith. What about Lamar Smith and
point.
the
209 yards? Oh yeah, Lamar Smith's got to be in there. It was a walk-off overtime win, so yeah, Lamar Smith's got to be. I'd say probably
is that
second at this point. Yeah, Lamar Smith's got to be second.
All right, so we're gonna change that. We're going with Lamar Smith's 209 yards, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is how the sausage is made.
209 yards and overtime walk-off touchdown.
Yeah, that's right. All right, so
that's got it. Well, would you even put that first ahead of what happened yesterday?
We're in the moment. Recency bias. All right, all right. So the shock at the Rock, Lamar Smith.
Yeah.
Greg Camarillo prevents 0-16 third. Wildcat game 4. Jay Fiedler 5.
Yeah.
And then you also say, I think maybe the clinching the division.
Yeah, I think it was a Ted Ginn punt return or kickoff return that really got that done.
I think it's beating Favre. To win the AFC East. That was
because yesterday actually, if the Dolphins had lost, would have been a 10th straight division victory for the Patriots. So it just sort of goes to show what a unique achievement that was.
It's
right. No, it's going to happen anyway. But I'm just saying that, like, it just sort of goes to show that even if Tom Brady was hurt, like, winning the division in any period during the last 17 years has been remarkable for this team.
Oh, no doubt. All right, so here we go. Last time, shock at the Rock. Lamar Smith's 209 yards and the OT touchdown. Greg Camarillo prevents 0-16. The Wildcat game. Jay Fiedler after 9/11 and beating Favre to win the AFC East. And then you were saying that. I would put the Thanksgiving game. I think Thanksgiving 2008. And then what was the other one? Sage to Chambers?
Sage to Chambers for a 20-point fourth-quarter comeback against the Bills. Albeit their quarterback on the day was J.P. Losman, so I don't know how impressive it was. But still, fourth-quarter comeback from 3 touchdowns down in the fourth quarter to win 24-23. Well done, Sage and Chambers.
See, there you go. We'll give credit to the guys who helped the network.
Today's edition of the 5 Reasons Sports Podcast is brought to you by AutoNation. Since AutoNation is America's largest automotive retailer, chances are they have the vehicle you're looking for. Shop from over 100,000 new cars, trucks, vans, and sport utilities. From the luxury of Mercedes-Benz to that Chevy pickup you've always wanted, they've got it. AutoNation helps finance over 430,000 people every year, and you could be next. Get a great rate today. AutoNation strives to make the car buying process quick and easy, but most of all, stress-free. In addition to an extensive selection, all pre-owned vehicles go through a rigorous 125-point inspection and come with an everyday no-haggle price. One price, no pressure, guaranteed. Start your search right now at AutoNation.com.
It's one of the best moments we've had here. And, it was a completely crazy play, obviously. And the Patriots defended it terribly, but that doesn't seem to matter at this point. But the big thing I want to focus on here is the Dolphins were in position to have a shot at the game. And that's more than we expected. I mean, even our 3 yards per carry guys, who are our most positive guys on the Dolphins, CK, I think, had them losing by 30 yesterday. Simon had them losing by a couple touchdowns. Alfredo thought it would be close and they'd lose at the end. But not a lot of people gave him a chance to win that game, in part because you had no Xavier Howard. And so you knew that Brady was going to tear you apart. And also, we just don't trust the Dolphin offense at this stage. And I'm going to back off a little on a couple things because they scored in the first drive again. I mean, now they're making a habit of this. and they did put up over 400 yards, although somehow, again, they slipped to 29th in total yardage. I'm not sure how that happened. But they put up offense consistently throughout the day. They moved the ball. They involved a bunch of different people, including Kenny Stills, which is something that we've been saying for weeks and weeks and weeks that had to happen.
I was on with Crowder yesterday doing pregame, and he just said it bluntly. Complaining works. Like, Kenny Stills dropped a little something in the press, and next thing you know, he has 8 of Ryan Tannehill's 14 completions yesterday on 9 targets. Like, complaining works, and well done to Kenny Stills because not only because he said it, but now he's backed it up with consecutive weeks with a touchdown. Yesterday, going over 135 yards in receiving yards. Which, by the way, how does all of that get allocated? Does Kenny Stills get receiving yards for that final play? Does Kenyan Drake get receiving yards for that? Because he has 55 receiving yards and a touchdown. That play in total was 69 yards. So how do they divvy up the stats for that? I have no idea. Devontae Parker was asking on Twitter if he gets credit for passing yards on that play, which, by the way, doesn't show an understanding of passing because a lateral is not included in passing stats. But yeah, for me, what Kenny Stills has done the last 2 weeks has more than justified his position in the team, his contract, and why he was saying, I throw me the ball, man. I'm really good. And he's gone and performed at a level that he should.
I mean, a couple things on that. One, I mean, is Devontae going to work that into his next contract extension? What is that? It's a very Whitesidean thing to do, right?
Yes,
like that's what we call it in this market. So I'm not sure that's whatever. I mean, I guess you're having fun after a win like that. But Kenny Stills, every time that they involve somebody, it begs the question why they haven't before.
Right.
That's been my issue with this season is even yesterday, like Kenyan Drake again. I mean, Gore ran the ball well, so it wasn't really necessary, but Drake did not get a ton of touches as a running back. It just appears Gase just does not view him that way. He views him as a change of pace guy, got to get out of the backfield on occasion, and then to to win on crazy plays at the end. Like he's not a featured back for them. I thought he would be a featured back, and I thought. I shouldn't say that. I thought that they would split carries because that's what Gase likes to do. Mm-hmm. But I did not think that if somebody was going to be getting the lion's share of the carries this year, it would be Frank Gore. But credit to Frank Gore. I'll tell you something. When you look at what Dwayne did the other day for the Heat in his 1,000th game, had 25 points in a win, and which is the 6th highest scoring total for any player in their 1,000th game. Okay, 6th highest ever, ahead of LeBron. LeBron had 19 points in his 1,000th game. He's been pretty good since, but like he had 19 points. I watched Roberto Luongo live the other day make a save, and he did give up 4 goals to the Rangers, but make a save that I was like, what the hell was that? I mean, one of the best saves I've ever seen live when I went to the Panther-Ranger game. He's 39, Wade is 36, and Frank Gore at 35. Rushing for close to 100 yards.
And I don't mean to demean the other two, but like you see NBA players in their late 30s play pretty well. You see hockey goaltenders play until they're 40, and NFL running back at age 35. I mean, it's just absolutely absurd. And not only is he playing well, but he's playing well in the sort of context of his career. He's having the best yards per carry season that he's had since 2012. He's 35. Mm-hmm. Like in his 30s, he's having his best season. Now he still doesn't have a touchdown, but he's running the ball really well.
How is that possible?
I don't know. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense. But he's actually creating big plays. He had gone 2 years without having a rushing play of over 30 yards. He had another yesterday. And I think the world of the guy. And one of the things that's kind of been missing from the Dolphins in the last 10 to 15 years is you watch guys where you're saying, oh, that's an excellent player being excellent. Like watching Cameron Wake as a pass rusher is an example of that. But there have been precious few others. Like, okay, Brandon Marshall might have had a few good games, or Mike Wallace might have had a few good games. But like one of the league's best players, one of the league's best ever players, living legends playing through Miami. And even at 35, Frank Gore is showing, he's showing why he's had this career in Miami at age 35. It's been incredible to watch.
I just keep going back to a conversation I had with him when he was still in college, and after he blew out the knee, and it's just. It's remarkable. It really is remarkable. And it was a great pickup by them. No question about it. I've been frustrated about the Drake thing all year, but when Gore is doing this in December, and now, look, you're going to go on the road to Buffalo in a couple of weeks, and like you can trust him in that situation.
And by the way, your quarterback's ankle is probably not going to be okay for the rest of the year. If he I'd be surprised if we find out today, oh, Ryan Tannehill can't play for the rest of the season. He was hopped up on elephant tranquilizers yesterday, and he played through on adrenaline, but he's not going to be able to give it a go. Like I would not be shocked at all if we find out that Ryan Tannehill's ankle injury is really bad, because it looked really bad in the moment. I thought straight away that was like season ender. I mean, a 300-pound man steps on your ankle, that should be the end of your season. But you're right. I think if Frank Gore sort of carries on playing the way that he is, and frankly staying healthy, which again for an older player is pretty shocking that he hasn't even missed a game. He hasn't missed, now he's played 16 games for the last, I think, 7 straight years, but still, like you don't expect for that to happen. You can say that Frank Gore is a reliable piece of what makes your offense good, and I'm just as shocked as you are. I did not think that that's what this season was going to be.
I want to tell you about another great sponsor of the 5 Reasons Sports Network. And for this one about PC Reboot, I'm going to speak to personal experience, because I started going to Barrington about 6 months ago because I'm terrible with computers. I get extremely frustrated with them and all of my different devices. I was looking for somebody. I just happened to stumble upon his great reviews online. So I went to check him out over in Pembroke Pines. He's over in East Pines on 8970 Taft Street, and I had a great experience. And so I've been going back ever since. And the reason I had a great experience is not only does he know what he's doing, he's got over 20 years of experience fixing computers. He's a Microsoft certified technician, but he also fixes all types of other products. But he's honest. He told me what the problem was. He told me what it should really cost. And then again this week, I had another issue because my battery is not working very well on my Dell computer. So I brought it to him. Any other technician basically would have taken the money out of my pocket, double charged me. And he's like, have you checked to see if this thing's under warranty? And I'm like, no, I haven't. And so I went back, checked if the thing's under warranty, and now I'm getting a free battery sent to me. And that's because, again, he's honest. He's only going to fix what he thinks he needs to fix and nothing more. And he's going to charge you the right price for it. He does smartphone and tablet repair. He does game console repair. He does smart home and surveillance camera installation, website design, all of that stuff. So check out his website. Here's what it is. It's ipcreboot.com. That's pcreboot.com. Again, 8970 Taft Street in Pines. Phone number is 954-442-1002. And when you call Barrington, talk a little Miami sports with him. He's a big Miami sports fan. I don't know if they even thought it. I don't know if they even thought. How could you? I mean, how would you believe you'd be at this stage of the season with him playing like that? So anyway, it's a great moment. We're going to pump it up as much as we can today. Clearly, before I bring you down with some negativity later in the podcast. But they beat the Patriots at home. They did it on a crazy play.
Yeah, and for me, the thing that's so impressive is that they went back and forth with them. In the opening of the game, the Dolphins could not get stops, and I was thinking, well, you don't want to get beat in the run game, and so you almost allow Tom Brady to beat you because at least you're stopping Sony Michel, which I agreed with, but it required the Dolphins' offense being able to summon a response when in the first half, it looked like Chiefs-Rams, that neither of these teams are going to stop scoring. And the fact that the Dolphins, when you go out, when the Dolphins' offense goes out, you don't expect them to score. You don't expect them, especially to generate quick touchdowns like they did on the 2-play touchdown drive with a throw to Stills, and then Brandon Bolden out of nowhere gets a 54-yard touchdown. That you just didn't expect the Dolphins to be able to keep up with a Patriots offense firing like that. And they did. They kept up with them the whole game, which credit to this Dolphins offense that at times has been putrid. They were right in there with that Patriots offense that, from a passing standpoint, was firing on all cylinders. Julian Edelman, double-digit catch game. Rob Gronkowski had his best game of the season. That's what the Patriots passing offense looks like at its best. And you were able to go toe-to-toe with it. It was incredible.
And the Patriots needed the game. That's the other thing. Yes. This is not a game they didn't need. Some of these games they've come down here and they've lost, but they haven't really needed them. But now you look, the Patriots are in a bit of a mess. They've got, because we've kind of we sort of overlooked, the Texans all year. Now they're coming off a loss, but they're 9-4, and so they're right there with the Patriots. Now the Chargers actually have the second best record in the conference. This is why I don't like the whole division thing. They got the second best record in the conference, but they're a game behind the Chiefs. I mean, the Chiefs potentially could have the season that they're having, lose a game to the Chargers here at the end, because they've got one more, right? They have one more against each other, and basically drop to the 5 spot in the AFC. I mean that's where this is headed potentially.
A 10-3 team is the 5 seed. It's just so stupid. I just, why are we still doing divisions? Why?
I don't know. We're gonna talk Heat tomorrow, Chris. I mean, the Heat are one game or a half game out of first place.
They're a game and a half back of the Charlotte Hornets in the Southeast Division.
Now, the difference is the NBA got rid of. So for the NBA, it makes even less sense to have divisions. See, Silver wanted to get rid of the divisions. I had him on a radio show 3-4 years ago. He wanted to get rid of divisions, but everybody was fighting him on it. So the compromise that the NBA came out with, we'll still do divisions. It just doesn't mean anything. Don't pay any attention.
It's just for scheduling purposes.
That's all it is, because you can win your division and not make the playoffs. In the NBA, if 8 teams from the other 2 divisions make the playoffs and you win your division, you do not make the playoffs. Okay. The NFL still gives you great credit for winning divisions. And the problem with that is there are only 4 damn teams in the division. So if you're in a bad division, you can get in and get a top 4 seed at 8-8, 7-9 potentially. Okay.
As the Seahawks.
And now you have the Chargers at 10-3, and they're them or the Chiefs is probably going to be a 5 seed with 12, maybe 13 wins,
which is crazy, absolutely insane. That Chargers game is this Thursday night. Chargers at Chiefs this Thursday night for basically the AFC West, you'd have to think. And then the Chargers are home with the Ravens and at the Broncos. So those are games that they can certainly win. But yeah, I mean, the Chargers are incredible. The Chiefs are incredible. And yet the Chargers still might have to spend the whole playoffs on the road, which, by the way, even if they did make the playoff, even if they did win the division, they'd be on the road for the entire playoffs anyway, because it's not like they're drawing home crowds.
No, they live on the road.
What does Los Angeles football have to do to get fans? The Rams, who lost to Chicago last night, the Rams are 11-2 and the Chargers are 10-3. The actual football teams have been in unmitigated success. They're 21-5 this year, but still you see a lot of opposing teams' fans. You talk about South Beach not knowing that we had a football team. I feel like if our football team was 10-3, we might realize, we got a football team. LA might have to be 10-3 for the next decade for anyone to realize that the Chargers are there.
But I said that, though, because I lived out there for a period of time after the Rams and the Raiders lost. And at the time when not everybody had the ticket, you would get games from other markets, and everybody in LA preferred that they not have a team because they would get all the other games. Okay. So, I mean, you're going back to the 90s now, but like they just don't care about the NFL there. It's a Laker town. It's a Dodger town. I mean, even the other teams, the Angels and the Clippers, sort of struggle to break through. So it never made a ton of sense to put one team there and put all of your energy behind it. I get it. To put two teams there was crazy. So anyway, let's move on to the next part of this, which is before we get into the scheduling and can they make the playoffs and all the rest of that, let's just touch on Ryan Tannehill here a little bit because, a couple weeks ago we were thinking he might not play again this season. Now he's put up, and I never know what to make of this, but he's put up really strong passer ratings the last 3 games. Yesterday it was legitimate. Like I feel like sometimes with him the passer rating is not legitimate, but yesterday it was. And now you're sort of in this weird place again, which look, when the sugar high wears off, okay, all right, because it's going to. When the sugar high wears off, and let's say you miss the playoffs at 9-7, which is possible, okay. Let's say you miss the playoffs at 9-7, and then you've gone through a situation where Tannehill's played pretty well at the end, and this team finishes 8-8 or 9-7, and so Gase is off the hot seat. Maybe even Tannenbaum's off the hot seat, although I'm not sure that changes a lot. But I feel like Dolphin fans may come to regret this a little bit like Heat fans regretted 30-11, which is like, all right, that was fun, and we were embarrassing ourselves, and now we're not, and some players that we were mad at performed well, and now we're going to keep some of those players and keep some of those coaches and keep some of those executives. In the Heat's case, they were always going to keep the coach and the executive, but I think you get my point. And now we're screwed because we decided not to change because we finished the season strong. And the parallel that I would draw here a little bit is 2005 for the Dolphins, Chris, because you mentioned that season. They started 3-7 under Saban. They won their last 6. Now, Saban decided Gus Frerotte was not good enough, all right, which is fine. He probably wasn't, but he had a good season. And we know the whole Culpepper Breeze saga, right? But he also chose not to make a lot of changes to that team because they won their last 6 games. And so he brought a lot of guys back, okay? And I feel like that's dangerous for any team at times to not make changes because you finish a season strong. I mean, the ultimate example, and you had to bring them back, was the 2005-2006 Heat, a team that was a mess for the first half of the season and won a championship because Dwayne Wade went supernova. And then the next year, they all hated each other just as I expected they would do the year before. So this kind of stuff happens in sports a lot, and it doesn't tend to end well. So let's start with Tannehill. Let's get to some of the other players. Has he done enough, in your opinion, to bring him back as a bridge quarterback? Because I'm not even going to entertain the idea that they don't bring in competition this offseason, okay? Because they can't be that stupid again, okay? But would you have him as a bridge quarterback, and at what price?
Yeah, I think you'd basically just leave the contract untouched. Now, I don't know if he'd hold out over that. He's probably going to ask for an extension after the way that he's played in his last 3 games, which, by the way, Adam Beasley has tabulated. And in his last 3 games since returning from injury, he's 8 touchdowns, 1 interception, 69 completion percentage for 606 yards and a quarterback rating of 130. So he's played pretty well, and yesterday made some amazing throws. I would say he had one throw to Kenny Stills that was like a 40-yarder that he dropped over a safety that was just, I mean, I saw it in person, and you see him really unable to really get his full strength behind throws. He was definitely unable to do that after the ankle injury, and yet threw like a really nice out pattern. I forget to who, it might have been, I just assume it was to Kenny Stills because he had 8 of the 14 completions yesterday, but it's one of those things that he played really well yesterday. He showed you the evidence of why the Dolphins haven't given up on him after 7 years, and he's 30 years old and you're still playing, and Dolphin fans still goes, well, maybe if he was just more consistent. Well, the problem is that a lack of consistency is you not being good. Good is not, can you be good in one game? Good is, can you sustain that level of play on a consistent basis? And can you sustain that level of play over 16 games or every week? Not that you're Patrick Mahomes, but that in most weeks you are a top-level quarterback. Ryan Tannehill can be in a week, but he can't be every week. And so I think, to me, what I would do is I would bring him back at exactly the same contract, at exactly the same price with the restructure that you did in the offseason, and draft a quarterback in the second or third round. Because I by the way, I might have said that even before yesterday. I've kind of been hesitating because I feel like Dolphins fans so little want to hear that. But I think given the options that are available, given the shortage of first-round quarterbacks that appear obvious that are going to be available, I think that might have been the strategy anyway. And at the very least, Tannehill makes it a bit more palatable. Will it still feel like Groundhog Day? Absolutely. Like I do think that you go into another season saying, well, if Ryan Tannehill is just going to be healthy, and we're going to point to a record of the Dolphins under Tannehill and Gase, and we're going to try and sell optimism that way. But we all know that Tannehill is not good enough. I do think that given the shortage of options, this might have been the outcome anyway.
I want to tell you about another great event we're having for the 5 Reasons Sports Network. And to me, this is our coolest event yet, because this is the one that you can involve your kids in. You're not just watching the game, you're also watching them play. It's going to be at Gecko Parx in Weston. That's 3305 Corporate Avenue in Weston. This is a brand new facility. I've been there a bunch of times. My daughter loves to go. I feel like she's at a birthday party there every week, because when parents come and see the place, they're like, yeah, this is the place we're going to have a birthday party. They've got trampolines, they've got dodgeball, they've got basketball, they've got games, they've got ropes course, they've got virtual reality now too. They've got great pizza and wings, and also they have rock climbing. And here's the deal. If you show up anytime between 12 and 4, this is on Sunday the 16th, this upcoming Sunday, show up and say 5 reasons, buy a day pass, and you will get free rock climbing against your child. This is a $20 value. You can challenge your child. Do whatever you want to do. It's going to be a great time. So we'll have all the games on. Sunday ticket, Dolphins, Vikings, Gecko Parx in Weston. Okay, part of me agrees with you on all this, because it is difficult to go get another quarterback. And we know, obviously, that it's not a great free agent market. We're basically talking about Teddy Bridgewater, who I like. But the thing is, I feel like Dolphin fans are hung up on Teddy Bridgewater for a couple reasons. One, because he probably should have been the quarterback. And so I feel like there's this sort of regret that they never got to see him. He's local. He never should have left to end up at Louisville. So I feel like that plays into it. And I also think, obviously there's just Tannehill fatigue with this, and Bridgewater has a personality. Like, there's a lot of reasons to like him, except his numbers. If you really look at what he did in Minnesota, I mean, he was like the ultimate caretaker quarterback. I would have to break down, length of throw and all that stuff, but just in terms of yards per attempt, in terms of touchdown ratio, I mean, he's not a big play NFL guy. People think of him as a big play guy because he's a big play guy in college. So I'm not against it at all. It is the name that I've thrown out there, our guys have thrown out there, because it just makes the most sense. I mean, if Breeze is going to play another 2 to 3 years, why is Bridgewater going to stay there? I mean, Bridgewater was basically Breeze protection for this season. So Bridgewater could start somewhere. I just think we've gotten a little carried away with it. But here's the thing about Tannehill. So I'm looking at let's just look at the numbers specifically. If you just match up this year to 2016, which we were talking about, what a solid season that was for him. He's thrown now exactly half the passes as 2016. Okay, he's played 8 games. He played 13 games that year. He's thrown 100. Yeah, he actually, about half, because 197, and that year he threw 389. Okay, so basically half. He's completed the exact same percentage, 67. He's actually thrown a bunch more touchdowns this year. He's thrown 16 this year in the 8 games, and that year he threw 19 in the 13 games. So this year, if you project this out over 13 games, it would be 26 touchdowns. So that would be a rise in 7 touchdowns over those games, while he's actually kept his interception percentage the same. So his touchdown percentage is up to 8.1 from 4.9, and his interception ratio is the same. His yards per attempt are up to a career high at 8.0 from 7.7. What's down is his yards per game. Okay, so basically what's happened this year is he's just thrown less.
Yeah, he only threw 19 times yesterday. Yeah.
Right. So he's thrown less per game, which our buddy Chris Perkins always talked about, that being sort of the desired outcome. But he's actually thrown for a much higher touchdown rate, for a higher yards per attempt rate. Those, to me, are the 2 most important statistics. The reason I look at those the most, as opposed to the other 2 in passer rating, completion percentage, is kind of accounted for in yards per attempt. Okay. And so the completion percentage, like him completing one of those flat screens, I'm not impressed. Okay. Like so I don't really take, and it's kind of double counted in that formula. So I don't really look at that. And interceptions, I've always been one to downplay that because yes, you don't want to turn the ball over, but so many of the interceptions are luck. Okay. I mean, 30% of them are 30 to 50% are receiver runs wrong route. Okay. Or ball is tipped or something like that, or great play is made. Like, there's a very small number of interceptions that are actually like on the quarterback. Like this is the quarterback making a bad throw to the wrong spot to the wrong person. Okay.
Right. Like yesterday, like last week when Xavier Howard caught an interception off Josh Allen where it looked like Josh Allen was trying to throw him a slant.
Right.
Like it actually, where you look at that and go, oh, that was just a quarterback being awful in that play.
The two Darnold interceptions against the Dolphins, okay, were like where he threw it, threw one to Robert Baker, right? Okay, there was
Jerome Baker.
Robert. God, did I do that? Leave that in the pod because I want to give credit to Robert Baker because he became a rapper after his brief NFL career, which was one catch. But he threw an interception to Jerome Baker. Okay, so that was a bad interception. So I never look into that too much. So I'm looking at touchdown percentage because if you're throwing touchdowns, you're putting your team in position to score because it's easier to throw touchdowns from closer in than it is from further out. And so obviously you're doing something right. And yards per attempt. And those numbers are up. And so that's the reason that the passer rating is at 105.7, which is by far the best of his career. Now, what's odd about it, Chris, is that Pro Football Focus put out something last week, which has Tannehill playing the worst he's ever played in his career. By far. It's not even close. It's like half of previous seasons in terms of the way they've rated him. And I'm assuming because they don't look at the numbers, they're not an analytics firm. They actually break down the film or the tape, whatever we call it these days.
They give so basically the way that they used to do it, they've kind of changed the way that they present it, but I imagine the idea is still the same, is basically on every play, you start at a 0, and if you make a great play, they give you +2, and if you make an awful play, they give you a -2. And that's basically how, and so they just basically tabulate at the end how many, +2s, +1s, 0s, -1s, and -2s you have, and then that's how they used to put out their grades. I imagine it's roughly stayed the same, but they now present it on a 0 to 100 scale to kind of make it more understandable than it used to be. But yeah, like his quarterback rating right now is actually 6th best in the league, which, ahead of guys like Jared Goff, Deshaun Watson, Aaron Rodgers, Andrew Luck, Tom Brady. Like his quarterback rating's as good as it's ever been. But again, that's why I have to watch the games. Like you can't just do it based off quarterback rating. I'd say yesterday was probably the first time that I left the Dolphins game, maybe since like week 1 against the Titans, where I left and I'm like, oh yeah, Ryan Tannehill played really well yesterday. Like actually made game-changing plays, game-changing throws, took some risks and converted on them, and it was in a shootout in a game in which they had to be, and looked like he was going to be able to go toe-to-toe with Tom Brady. Like I would say yesterday might have been his first really good performance of the year, which is amazing when you consider the initial injury that he had, and then he picked up another injury within the game and clearly was playing on a bum ankle because he was limped to the sidelines 2 and 3 times in that second half. He was incredible yesterday, and that's the best we've seen out of Ryan Tannehill, I would say, by some distance. Again, you can throw his quarterback ratings in some of these games at me. You have to watch the games because I would say Adam Gates' greatest skill with quarterbacks is making their quarterback ratings look good because they didn't have to make any throws over the course of a game. And so yesterday, Ryan Tannehill had to make some throws, took some chances on some difficult ones and made them and converted on them and created big plays. So I would say Tannehill's probably most convincing performance of the season was yesterday by a lot. Look, I'm a big numbers guy. I like looking at that stuff, but you have to watch the games too because otherwise you're going to be led to believe that Ryan Tannehill is a top 6 quarterback in the league, and he just isn't. He just isn't.
No, he's not, but I think what PFF is looking at, maybe pocket presence stuff. It might be throwing to the wrong receiver, maybe, or checking down when he shouldn't check down. I'm just trying to figure out how, because look, you can draw a conclusion that he hasn't been great, and you and I have both talked about that, and we talked about that when they were 3-0. And like you said, I think this was really his first great or close to great performance of the season. But I think to have the rating as low as Pro Football Focus has had it, there's got to be something he's doing consistently wrong, right?
I don't know. See, you know what? I don't think it's him doing something consistently wrong. I think it's him consistently doing nothing, right? Where literally you can have any quarterback make those throws. And so they have to give positive ratings in order for that number to go up. They have to rate plays positively, and a 70-yard pass where all you do is shovel the ball to Albert Wilson, who's running across the formation, that's a 0 from Ryan Tannehill. He gets no credit for that. That's all Albert Wilson. And so, and that number drastically inflates his quarterback rating. So I think some of the throws that he's made that have most inflated his stats are not credited to Ryan Tannehill, and that Pro Football Focus is about assigning credit, right? Assigning credit to who made the play, and I think so infrequently you can really not assign credit, or you can so infrequently give the credit to Ryan Tannehill for why offensive plays have worked. It's been him making throws to skill guys. I mean, how often have you said, well, that was a really impressive throw? Like, he made 3 or 4 yesterday, but before that, like, obviously
there were a couple throws to Stills early in the season.
Sure.
There was the touch. I can't remember which game, but it was at home. The touchdown.
I think it was the Raiders game.
I think it was the Raiders. It was a beautiful throw. Yeah. There have been I'm trying to think that since he's come back, he had the one. The throw to Parker,
the throw to Parker as he's getting hit in the middle of 4 guys was a really impressive throw. They have a stat, I believe, called big time throws. I don't subscribe to PFF. I probably should, but they keep track of what they call big time throws, which are into tight windows and in big moments in the game for long distances. And like Ryan Tannehill was always towards the bottom, but he's made a few of those in the last couple of weeks. I'd be curious to see how they've rated them. But yeah, like he just hasn't made enough of those to really impress the Pro Football Focus people, which I think is fair because, again, watch the games. Don't just rely on the stats.
So 3 games left, and to close this section, the way I look at him right now is follow it up, right? Like that's and I do
go on the road and have 130 yards and have 5 drives where you go 3 and out.
Right. So follow it up, show something. I think that would at least make fans feel more comfortable about it. But I think a lot of this does have to do with options. I think if you go into the offseason and something emerges that's maybe better than Bridgewater, and I'm still fine with Bridgewater as a bridge quarterback because I don't think either Teddy Bridgewater or Ryan Tannehill is the long-term answer. So to me, it's who do you get cheaper? Okay. I know Gase did the research on Bridgewater. I know he likes him. Again, our 3 yards guys have talked about that. If you think you can acclimate him to the system and get him to a level where Tannehill's at for a cheaper price, then maybe. The problem is there aren't a lot of quarterbacks on the market. I don't know that there's going to be a cheaper price option that makes a ton of sense. Either way, they need competition this year. I would try to get Tannehill to take the pay cut. It's going to be harder if he's got 105 passer rating to do that. I would attempt to do that rather than what he's going to earn and what the 18.5 next season. It's not an exorbitant salary for a quarterback, but obviously you'd like to try to take it down.
What if it's just the same? What if it's just you make 18 million, right? I mean, I guess the cap hit is 26. Oof,
the cap hit is 26. It's significant, but the cap is not their problem, really, right? The cap, because they can clear out so much money this off season. The cap's not really their issue. Their issue is not the cap, it's the competition. It's having protection at the position. It's having someone to push Tannehill. Do you think that his performance yesterday has anything to, and again, I give him great credit for toughness. That's something you never argue about, whether it's the shoulder, the knee, now the ankle. He's incredibly tough. But do you think any of this is that he's being pushed now, not by another player, because Brock Osweiler cannot push him, but by the clock? He's being pushed by the clock, okay? The clock is, his tenure is almost over here if he doesn't do something significant. Now, he takes them to the playoffs. They're probably not going to replace him. If they ended up 7-9, the likelihood is, I think, knowing them, maybe not, but the likelihood is that they would be replacing him. And so I do think that puts a time element into this for him where you have to play at a certain level. And I do think that affected his decision to come back because, again, the shoulder's not right. The shoulder's not right. So let's move on to the next part of this.
And yesterday the ankle was not right, and he's out there anyway because he must feel if I leave the game and we lose and we go 6-10, 7-9, I'm out. So what use is there me in sitting back here in the locker room moping about my ankle? Shoot me up and get me back out there. Like, as grim as that is about football, like, that's how those guys think. Like, we just know that at this point. That's how those guys think. So I think that played a huge role in him getting back out there yesterday, no doubt.
All right, so let's decide whether or not they can make the playoffs here in our last section. And some good things happened for the Dolphins yesterday. The biggest of which was Denver losing because when I went through the 5 things that you needed to happen yesterday for the Dolphins. I put this on Dolphin Maven and kind of what would help them in addition to the most, unlikely outcome, which is beating the Patriots. What actually, could they pull off? What did they need other teams to do? The biggest thing that to me was unlikely of all of the options was Denver losing to San Francisco. And that's what happened.
I was shocked yesterday when I got a notification. I worked yesterday after the game, and so I wasn't keeping track of the 4 o'clock games. And when I got out, I checked all my notifications that I had, and I saw Niners 20, Broncos nothing. I'm like, what the hell's going on here? What happened? And San Francisco really helped you out yesterday.
Yeah, they did. And after Jacksonville helped you out with Indianapolis the week before. So, I mean, the results that you needed, yesterday were Texans to beat the Colts. Didn't happen. You needed the Chiefs to beat the Ravens,
which they just about did. I saw some people were. I didn't get a chance to watch the game because I was at the Dolphins game, but the Chiefs yesterday appear to now have a Kareem Hunt problem, where without Kareem Hunt, it's just not the same team. And the Ravens' defense is good, and Lamar Jackson's doing enough. Like he's now started 4 games in a row, and he has 70 yards rushing in all of them. So he's just got enough on the ground, and he's changed their season. You talk about there being a shortage of options. People might have thought that Lamar Jackson was not a first-round option last year, and just with his legs alone has kept the Ravens season alive. And you look at 3 wins in a row and going to overtime with the Chiefs, like they're still, for me, the favorites to get. You know what? It's between them and the Colts. Like I think the Dolphins having a road game against Minnesota, I think might just about do them in. I don't know if 9-7 is going to be good enough. From a schedule standpoint, the Dolphins probably have the best-looking schedule because you have home with the Jags and at the Bills to close the season. You have 2 of the bottom 4 teams in the AFC, and I don't think anyone else has a schedule that's that bad.
No,
other than Denver, but they lost yesterday.
They lost yesterday, and that's why of the 4 things that needed to happen, the third was the Niners to beat the Broncos. I didn't anticipate that, but I did say maybe there's a bad Case Keenum game out there somewhere, and I think you got it. And then the 4th thing was the Raiders over the Steelers, which was also unlikely, but this matters now that it happened because you mentioned the Ravens, being in the position that they're in now. I mean, the Ravens can win that division, and they're at 7-6. The Steelers are 7-5-1. The Steelers' schedule is brutal. And I know you mentioned the Colts and the Ravens you think being the most likely, but we may have to put the Ravens in as a potential division winner, which means we're really talking about the Colts and the Steelers. And the Steelers' schedule, you went through it, Chris. It's challenging.
Yeah, their next 2 games are home with the Patriots and at the Saints. And we know the Patriots absolutely dominate Pittsburgh. And no matter the setting, no matter where the game is played, the Patriots always seem to beat the Steelers. And then at the Saints, I mean, that's as difficult a game as you're going to have. And that's a 4:25 game on national TV. And then they close home with the Bengals, which seems like the most gimme game in the NFL at the moment. But yeah, they could be 7-7-1 going into that final weekend, and that's just not going to be enough. It's just like you're going to need 9 wins. 8-7-1 might not be enough. So I think the Steelers are very quickly falling into quicksand. If it's 7-6-1 next week, and the Dolphins, even if the Dolphins lose, you're right there. So the Steelers are very quickly in that morass of teams. Right now, it's 5 with the Steelers, the Ravens, the Colts, the Dolphins, and the Titans. So let's quickly go over their schedules and let's kind of just sort of look at it. So would you say the Steelers lose their next 2?
I mean, it
would be a 5-game losing streak for them if they lost their next 2.
Which is what's weird about the Mike Tomlin era, if you look at it, is that they have these runs one way or another. And he keeps the bad runs a little bit shorter, but it's like they typically have. So they had one really good run this year, and now it's kind of fallen apart a little bit. I didn't think they played poorly in the previous 2 games, but again, to lose to the Raiders is a bad loss at this stage.
And by the way, they're going to probably be without James Conner again next week, who was kind of keeping them afloat at running back. They've got nothing at running back.
Right. I mean, well, when they were playing their backup all year, and also I saw a stat yesterday that they relied on Connor, I think, second most in terms of touches of any back in the league this year. So yeah, they need him, and they don't have him, and they're also a little bit beat up defensively right now. So I do think the Steelers are not going to win that division. I don't believe the Ravens typically finish strong, like you said. They were competitive yesterday. he's playing well. Another quarterback option we're going to have to talk about on a future pod is Flacco, because clearly he's not going to be there next season. I mean, I would think if Lamar Jackson finishes this thing out, with the way he's been playing and shows some growth as a passer, they've got to turn it over to him. But yeah, I think the Steelers. What's their last one? They have
home with the Bengals,
and the Bengals have been awful lately, giving up a ton of points. Let's just project it out. Let's say they go 1-2.
Yeah, so that would be they would be
8-7-1.
The Colts are 7-6. They beat the Texans yesterday. Huge win for them. They're home with the Cowboys, who are all of a sudden on a roll. They're home with the Giants, and they're at the Titans. That's like, in terms of a group of games, as kind of unpredictable as it gets, because the Giants are actually playing well right now.
Yeah,
Saquon Barkley looks like a generational running back. The Cowboys are playing really well, and the Titans are off a big win on Thursday night. That game could be for everything on the final day of the season. So I'm
saying 1-2. I'm saying 1-2.
All right.
Yeah, I have an 8-8.
I'm gonna say 2-1. I think they lose. They lose to the Cowboys and beat the Giants and the Titans. I would say 9-7 for them is how I would see it. So for Baltimore, they are home with Tampa next week, which, again, if you're a good team, that's a game you should win. Then they're at the Chargers. I wonder if the Ravens fans probably have to start booking their flights now for Los Angeles. That is actually a Saturday night game. That is that when they started introducing these games towards the end of the year. So a Saturday night 8:20 game against the Chargers, and then they're home with the Browns, who that's not a gimme win anymore. The Browns are playing well. They beat the Panthers yesterday. Baker Mayfield is playing well. I don't think that's a guaranteed victory. Still, though, if you're the Ravens, you have to be thinking about 2-1 in order to close that season. But again,
they're not losing to the Ravens. Don't lose to the Browns. They're not losing to the Browns at home with a chance to clinch the division. It's not happening. Even if Mayfield's playing well, I got him at 9-7. So that means they would be the division winner, and the Steelers would be competing for a wild card.
Would be 8-7-1, yeah. And then so the Bucks, they lost at home to the Saints yesterday despite leading. But again, we don't really see any unbeatable stretches left. The best chance might actually be for the Titans, as unpredictable as that would be. They're at the Giants, home with Washington, who are terrible. That's also a Saturday afternoon game. And then they're home with the Colts. So I don't know, man.
I'm with you. I think the winner of that Titans-Colts game is going to get a spot.
Yeah,
I think, right? So I think the winner of that, again, it depends a little on tiebreakers, obviously, but I think the winner of that Titans-Colts game is going to be a 9-17. And so there will be one. To me, the loser of that game is out.
But here's the thing, though. So from a Dolphins point of view, they're at the Vikings. I think we can go ahead and call that a loss. And then they're home with the Jags. Well, I mean, we'll see tonight. I'll watch the Monday Night Football game with interest tonight. But I mean, a road game for the Dolphins, even in a dome, like for a game that the Vikings will have to have because they're in a playoff race too. I think they're 8-point underdogs already. Right now, they'd be favored to lose. And then you're home with the Jags and at the Bills. Now we can talk about whether or not you can really put any wins in the bank, even against teams as bad as the Jags and the Bills are, but if you get to 9-7 and it comes down to that final game, you become a big Titans fan, right? Because if the Titans win that final game, then you get in on the tiebreaker.
Because you have the tiebreaker in the Colts.
Like the Dolphins' chance of making the playoffs might come down to whether it's the Titans that win or the Colts that win.
It's very possible. The other thing to take into consideration is winning against the Patriots might bring a player or two back this year. Like the 3 yards per carry guys were talking about Xavier Howard, like he might just be shut down for the season because why bother, right? Because they were assuming a Patriots loss. I would think now there'll be more of a premium on I don't know how bad the injury is. The Dolphins don't tell the truth about injuries. We've been through this now 4 times this year. Devontae Parker, Ryan Tannehill consistently. Cameron Wake had a surgery. We think that they didn't disclose that. Then there was a whole back and forth about that. And Xavier Howard, reportedly, according to Ian Rappaport, had a surgery that the Dolphins have not admitted. They've talked about it in-house. So I don't know how bad the injury is, but I would think that there'd be more of a push for him to get back at this stage. We saw Amendola play. I mean, this is a tough team. I will say that. This is a tough team. They've lost a lot of guys, but they are tough. But look, I guess the safe thing to do is project the Dolphins at 9-7. That's the most likely outcome, I think.
And it might be enough when we've gone through the schedules. I don't think there's a team.
What about the Broncos' last 3? What about the Broncos?
So the Broncos would get to 9-7 if they beat. They are home with the Browns, at the Raiders, and home with the Chargers, who might have just about locked. Well, I guess it's sort
they
of
might need that game for the division.
Right, exactly. That's fascinating, isn't it? They might need that game to get to the 1 seed because if they win on Thursday in Kansas City, which I didn't think they had a chance to win in Pittsburgh, so I'm not going to underrate the Chargers now. But the Chargers, I think the Dolphins have to kind of be rooting for the Chargers to win on Thursday so they have something to play for, because the Chargers' last 3 games on their schedule almost all impact the Dolphins' hopes. They're at the Chiefs and they're home with the Ravens and at the Broncos. So the Chargers might have a huge deciding role in who gets in besides themselves. So yeah, I think Denver, now again, you can't lock them in for 2 wins in their next 2 games because they lost, they lost in San Francisco today. But Denver still has a chance, even losing today with the Browns and the Raiders coming up, to climb back into it.
And I think that's the thing we should, as we close, that we should sort of touch on for all these teams. None of these teams are that good. They're all flawed. Mm-hmm. So all of them can lose a game like the Broncos lost yesterday, right? All of them can lose a game like the Colts lost against Jacksonville where they go scoreless. Like, how do you explain the Colts playing so much better against a better team?
Yeah, I've seen that won 9 in a row before yesterday, yeah.
Right. So look, I don't think we can chalk up anything. I'm just saying that if you look at most likely outcomes, you would say the Dolphins 9-7, and I think you may be right about this. I think ultimately it comes down to, because the Chiefs or Chargers is getting that 5 spot, whoever does not win the division. That 6 spot may come down to who wins that Titans-Colts game. And if it's the Titans, then the Dolphins may get that spot. And if it's the Colts might get that spot. And we'll all be talking about, deciding, what Adam Gase decided at his goal line, against the Colts in that game. Instead of putting the ball in the hands of his all-pro quarterback with 105 passer rating. That looks even worse now. All right, we'll be talking to you more as the week continues. We're going to do a Heat episode. The Heat, as we speak now, they're going to be in Los Angeles. Last game between Dwayne Wade and LeBron James until the finals, at least. So we'll be talking about that on Tuesday as the Heat, as they stand now, about a game out of a playoff spot in the Eastern Conference. They're also in the 8th lottery position. If you're following
That's
it,
hilarious.
So
just like if they make the playoffs, they draft 15th. If they don't make the playoffs, they might draft 7th.
Right. So we'll see how that goes. And Hassan Whiteside is still tending to his child, and I don't know that there's a big rush to get him back. Anyway, we'll talk to you later in the week.
Thank you for listening to the Fire Ringer Podcast. Thank you so much.